So Jeff, Happy New Year. Great to be with you again, and hope your holidays treated you well. We were talking earlier about something that's going to be top of mind for anybody, and it's just how to start your year. There's a lot of different scenarios that people could be walking into with a new year. Maybe you had a bad year last year, so you're just chomping at the bit to get started. You really want to optimize 2022. You could have had a really great year last year, and then it's how do I follow this up? Um, how do I go out and seek out some new challenges and make sure that I'm not a flash in the pan? Or maybe you're a few days into this new year and you're just not feeling it. You're overwhelmed. Maybe you gave it your old New Year's resolutions a try the first week, and you're already going back into old ways. Whatever it is, I'm curious, how would you tell our audience how they can be optimizing this new year?
Yeah, it's a great question, and like you said, it really depends a lot on what role you're in, the circumstances of your company, things like that, right? So there's not a one size fits all answer to this question, but I'll try my best to just knock off some best practices that have worked for me. In the roles that I've had traditionally, and this is not true for everyone, but I think it's true for a lot of folks, that the end of the year and the holiday season is typically a little bit of a slowdown period. And I'm someone who doesn't like to be too idle all the time. So as much as I like to relax and have some vacation, I also don't like the feeling that I'm letting time get wasted. I always really like to use that holiday period, even that dead week between Christmas and New Year's, as like my strategy time. That's when I like really try to spend some time with people on my team, digging up the data on things that went well and didn't go well in the past year, thinking about the tweaks that we need to make in the new year. I remember that at a past company, we were actually able to learn a lot about like some failures in our sales process, and it led to us implementing basically a new collateral piece that completely changed our sales process, and actually a new way of engaging in enterprise contracts that we had not entertained before. We actually changed the way we did our POCs because we looked at some of the data and we saw like we were able to understand like why some of our POCs were falling out, and it led to us implementing a new strategy that dramatically increased those rates in the following year. So I really like to just use that time to just be really intentional and strategic. And then as you start out the new year, as a sales leader, I think that what you're really trying to do is understand, based on everything that what is your process? What are the metrics you're trying to hit? When are you trying to achieve them by? Like, what are the benchmarks that you need to hit throughout the year, and why, right? Like the why, it needs to be behind everything that you do, because a lot of times, especially in high growth tech companies, you might have, a leader, CEO, somebody who wants to do certain things, but it's because they're aspirational and it, or whatever, but it's not necessarily driven by a specific why. Sometimes the board or the investors want you to do certain things, but even they're not motivated by a why. It's just because that's what they want you to do. So you need to be really asking yourself, like, what's truly attainable? It's not a good idea to set a target that's really ambitious just because it's ambitious, because what happens if that's really not a reasonable target? You're going to deflate your entire team's morale. So you need to really, like, I know that I'm kind of hitting on the same point over and over again, but there needs to be some intentionality around what you're trying to accomplish and why. Like you need to understand the data really well, and to be able to set a plan and a process that's going to work, to help you get there. So those are the things that I try to do at the beginning, at the end of the year, the beginning of the year. I use this dead time to do the things that we're otherwise too busy to do in the minutiae of our day to day. How about yourself? What are the things that you do? Are there any best practices, mantras, things that you can share with me?
Yeah, so everybody watching, mark your calendar for the end of the year. And Jeff said, we need to mark off and carve out that last week of the year or last couple of weeks to make our plan for the following year. I love that. I'll tell a personal story. I I was in use it or lose it mode on vacation at the end of last year. I took some time, and I'm one of those people that I feel the inclination, especially when I first try to take a day off, to optimize every second. So it's hard for me to sit still. If I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, man, should I be like listening to an audiobook for like personal growth? Should I be like writing something or like writing my plan? So I did. I spent some time. I often find that I come up with my best ideas during either those quiet times or when I'm exercising or whatever it is. When I'm not intentionally plugged into work is when I come up with some of my better ideas. And so actually, just like you, came up with some interesting strategies that had worked well historically that I want to infuse into my process right here at the onset of the year. But I got to tell you, coming back, even this week, I dipped my toes into the water. There was a lot going on Monday. It went fine. Tuesday morning, I woke up, wasn't feeling it. And I think it's okay. We got to acknowledge that sometimes when we're just not feeling it. Maybe we slow it down. Maybe we change it up. We do something a little bit different. A lot of us have been in our home office for a long time or consistently over the last couple of years. I mixed it up, got out of the house, went to the office, picked a window view, and had a phenomenal day. It changed my entire mindset. And then by day 3, day 4, I felt like my old self again. So I think it's key that we acknowledge that we're maybe not feeling it and we slow it down, make things look a little bit different. Maybe you shift if you've got the opportunity, do some of the things that you've highlighted as far as your goals for personal growth. Maybe you invest in some training, you read a book, you get outside, do the walking meetings. I've read a lot about the value of even just going outside and taking a call that you can while you're out for a walk. Now, for some of us right now, it's a little cold. So fortunately, I've been able to add some elements to my home gym over the last year. But that said, do something that you're passionate about and try to infuse that into your work. Now, let's say you had a bad year last year. So this year, you can come in and, maybe there's, keep your expectations, I would say, reasonable. But I loved your point about setting that target that is going to be realistic. And the target really comes into, I need to look at this year and I need to understand what are the relationships that I'm going to need to develop this year to reach my career goals, but also to get the deals done that I want to get done. Do I have those relationships? Because if I don't, now's the time to be getting them. Now's the time to be going out and trying to find those ways, whether it's referrals or whether it's leveraging social to connect with some of these folks, whether it's picking up the phone and calling. Now's the time to start getting the relationships that you're going to need to reach your goals this year. I liken it to a workout in a lot of ways. I have a lot of respect for you because of the discipline that you have to run marathons. And just like a marathon planning process, which, trust me, I know nothing about, but I do exercise frequently, the foundation is key. You've got to have a plan. But don't get me wrong, things are going to change along the way. You may go out, you pull a hamstring, you hurt your back, which is also a very personal story. Things will change and you've got to shift and adjust, and it's just like life. But you go out foundationally, and I think those are the key things, that you go in with a plan, you pace yourself, you acknowledge, listen to your body. So you acknowledge when you've got these feelings of, hey, I'm just not feeling it today. And then do something a little bit different. Acknowledge that discomfort and try to remind yourself of why you set out for the goal in the first place. Try to hark back to where you were in that mindset. And, you're going to have some off moments, off days. But the last thing that I wanted to touch on is, let's say you had a brilliant year last year. I had a good year, and then you come into a new year and it's like, how do I keep that momentum? How do I, come back and win again? And over the break, I was reading, I love reading leadership books. And I was reading an autobiography that John Wooden had written. And one of the lines really struck me. So John Wooden, one of the greatest coaches of all time, the line was that winning is great, but it doesn't last. And what lasts is what you've learned. And so I think the key, it ties back to what you said earlier, and that bookends our session great, is because look back at the things historically that have worked well for you. It's hard sometimes when you get caught up in the minutia, to your point, and in the day-to-day to really be able to see things. But what's great about taking a break is you can take a step back, have an eagle-eye view of what's worked, what doesn't work, take those lessons you've learned and try to infuse them into your process going forward. But if you keep people, relationships, and process, you tweak your process where needed throughout this year, you'll have a great one.